What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Sasquatch Out of the Shadows Live. As always, I'm your host, Alex Pedikov. I hope everyone is having a good Monday so far. It's Monday. I know it's tough. I definitely have had a very long one for sure. But that's why I look forward to my Mondays, being able to talk to all you folks and have some awesome guests on. So really excited for that. For folks that missed last week's show, we're in the 80s now, I think, for streams. So getting close to 100, which is pretty exciting. I didn't think I'd be doing live streams for that long. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun. But last week we talked with a bunch of friends of ours, Carrick St. Laurent, Eli Watson, Jeremiah Byron, Tate Hieronymus. We talked about Bigfoot literature. So a lot of Bigfoot books, stuff that we grew up reading, stuff that we kind of, I don't know, recommend, or just stuff that's really interesting when it comes to this topic. There's a lot of great books out there, and people that are just getting into it might not even be aware of it if they're just seeing what's on TV or just seeing the documentaries. You got to have a base somewhere kind of where to start. And some of these books are often a really good point to just read from actual accredited scientists like John Bitternagel or Jeff Meldrum or others as well. So just check that out if you haven't seen that show. We'll be having some awesome upcoming guests as well. Next week we'll be joined by Jay Burch, who is also from Washington State, which is great, kind of combining that with tonight's guest as well, Brent. But we'll be getting that in a minute. But Jay is awesome. He's had an experience in Washington we're going to talk about. He's also been researching for a little bit. I was actually just on his show just a few nights ago, and the name of the channel always escapes me, but it's Bigfoot and Barbecue, I believe. Bigfoot Barbecue and More, something like that. I will correct myself at some point and properly shout that out as well, and including next week when we have him on. But just wanted to take care of a few things and kind of announce that. And we just hit 7,000 subscribers, which, it's cool. I only say that because I really thank everybody who tunes into this stuff. Really appreciate all the kind words that I get and just people enjoying the stuff. And we'll be having some new videos coming out soon. This Thursday, I have a solo camping video that I kind of made up in northern New Hampshire at the end of October. Just had a fun solo camp, cooked some steak and some freeze-dried meals, and just had a fun time. It's not really a Bigfoot video. I do a little bit of kind of talking about some of the local stories, but just a sort of nature and cooking video. I'm going to start doing more videos like that in between editing Beyond the Trail stuff, because that really eats up a big chunk of time in terms of editing. But I've got all this other footage from little trips and kind of camping. I'm also going to do a kind of a longer documentary about when I hiked the 48 4,000 footer mountains in New Hampshire from 2017 to around 2019, something like that, give or take a few years. But I'll talk more about that later. We'll get on with it. But for tonight's guest, we're actually going to be joined by Brent Dill. So some might be familiar with Brent. He's in a lot of the other streams. He's got a YouTube channel called The Tall Ones. But Brent is a Washington State resident that's investigated the Bigfoot phenomenon for the last 6 years. In his own words, my main goal is to see one myself to confirm that they do exist, while doing the best to collect viable evidence along the way. Nice and simple. Love it. So without further ado, let's bring Brent right in. How's it going, man?
Hey, good to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I've seen you. I was telling you off camera here before we started, rather, that I've seen you on some other streams, of course, and you're kind of all over the place, which is awesome. And definitely want to just have you on and talk about Washington State, especially. We just put out the Olympic Bigfoot documentary, as well as On the Trail of Bigfoot, the Discovery. So kind of felt cool to talk about that. We haven't talked a whole lot about Washington State on the show, aside from with some of the Olympic Project members. So wanted to bring some other folks in as well. And since we're having Jay on, it just makes sense. So
Yeah, and congratulations on that documentary with the Olympic Project too. That was really good. I mean, you guys definitely hit home with that, and I'm actually excited for Jay to be on next week as well. I mean, his encounter is always really good. Me and my girlfriend went down to his encounter area a couple months ago now, and it's such a nice area, such a beautiful area, and good historic history with Bigfoot there, and it's in the Gifford Pinchot National Forest, and man, it's such a beautiful area.
Right on. Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's I'm sure we'll get more into that, talking about, Washington State and how great it is and everything. I was blown away. It was my first time going there when we went this past April. Technically, I guess we went over the summer because we were staying in like a suburb of Portland when we were filming the stuff at Mount Hood. That was like the second time there, but I don't really consider that because we were just right over the river there. But that was like the first time really going this past April, after hearing all those stories. And you just, if you're into Bigfoot, obviously you hear a lot of Bigfoot stories from the state that has the most amount of sightings, or so we hear.
Yeah.
So, and it just kind of it makes sense. Like you go to a place like the Olympic Peninsula, it's like another planet. And then and I was telling you also, as I was flying over, seeing the not just only Mount Rainier, but the Cascades underneath you as you're flying. It's just ridiculous. It's like a little mini Alaska kind of feeling,
Yeah, it's vast. The Cascade Mountain Range, that's the area that I mainly go explore and investigate, which is right across the way from the Olympic Peninsula, right across the Puget Sound there. And it's such a vast area where there's so many opportunities for Bigfoots to exist out there. There's food year round. There's little interference with man because it's so remote. And I'm sure you've seen when you're out there how like a rainforest it is, how the undergrowth is so treacherous to go in, but it's such a beautiful area, and it's going all the way from California up to Canada, and it's a good little highway for them to go. Just got to find their navigation routes and all the little areas that they seem to inhabit.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, like having been to also Bluff Creek in that area, and then driving up to Oregon, and you kind of get these little bits and pieces of the fabled Pacific Northwest sort of in your mind. As you mentioned, it goes up through Canada all the way up to really southern Alaska. I mean, that whole coastal part of Alaska is all contiguous territory where you have, all sorts of bear, moose, anything you can imagine in terms of the woodland critters there on the West Coast. So absolutely amazing. But before we get into that, I do just want to say hey to a few people in the chat. We got some awesome folks out there. We got Something to Sasquatch About. Says Brent's true goal is to be on every podcast there is.
Yeah. I love Sean.
One more up. Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. Something to Sasquatch About. Yeah, I've seen some of his stuff as well. He does some pretty awesome streams, very, very similar kind of stuff. And I always love tuning into all the live stream going on.
Yeah, he does really good. Awesome. He actually has Shane coming on, I think next week or in a couple weeks or so. So that's going to be really fun.
Yeah, definitely. Dakota G made it. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. We have 4GTV says, yeah, indeed, my friend. Tommy Cooper from Cryptovania. What is going on? We have Jay. So that's the name of the channel. I said I'd correct myself. Bigfoot Barbecue and Camp Cookbook. I was like Bigfoot and Barbecue and more. I don't know.
I mess it up too, man.
I'm really sorry.
I interchange the words around, and it's
Absolutely. But go check Jay out. He's got some cool stuff he's doing, and he's doing
great host too.
Yeah, we're hoping to link up with him, and I'd love to link up with you as well if we get out to Washington again to do some Ape Canyon stuff this coming summer or at some point. But we'll obviously be in touch about that. That would be awesome. We got New Hampshire Sasquatch, my friend. What's going on, man? He's a local researcher here in my state of New Hampshire. Great guy, does an awesome job. Posts a lot of his stuff over on Instagram, but very cool. Peggy Curtis, what is going on? Hi, Squatchketeers. That's good. We got Brian and Chewy Go Hiking. What is up, dude? Brian's awesome. He is also local here in New England. I've gone hiking with him. He has a great encounter story. Interviewed him over the summer about it.
His last video is like, I don't know, that one's like magical with the snow and stuff. That was a really good one. I like that one.
Snow hits up in the White Mountains. Actually, I was checking that out when I was at work, and I was like, oh man, I got to hit Brian up. Maybe I'll get my butt in shape and go do a winter hike with him up, because he's up there almost every weekend. And I'm like, I need to get back into it. I was doing it a few years in a row. We were going hiking all the time, and now it's just been so busy lately. But
life happens.
What's going on, Carrick? We got Carrick Crash Course Cryptozoology, My Eyes, and hello to everyone else. Glenn H. Patriots are on too. A good Monday. There you go. Lots of other great people in the chat. How's everybody doing? The Squatching Cowboy as well says, howdy, y'all. Not often I get to see Alex live. Well, welcome one and all.
To and my mom's also watching too. So I sent her a link. So it's going to be one of the first podcasts she's going to be watching me on. So everybody say hi to my mom.
Hello, Brent's mom. Hope you're doing well. Welcome, and hope you enjoy the show. And we'll have a great time, I'm sure. But so kind of to get the basics out of the way, what got you interested in the Bigfoot subject? Was it growing up in Washington, or was it, something that happened, or where did that interest or intrigue come from?
Well, I've only lived in Washington for probably a little about half of my life. But
Okay.
what kind of got me interested into it was I was always fascinated with the whole Bigfoot phenomenon, and Harry and Henderson's really kind of made an impact. I remember when I was a kid watching that, and it was a magical movie, and really kind of put that little Bigfoot magic out there for me. Then as I got older, I kind of wanted a hobby and something I kind of do for myself and stuff. And so I was like, I live in the Pacific Northwest, and I want to check out the whole Bigfooting thing. And I've always had a fascination with it, and living in Washington, and it's that's kind of how I got started. And it's been quite the roller coaster ride on how naive I was coming into it, to the experiences that I've had with the people, and stuff out in the woods. And it's been quite the roller coaster, but it's been so much fun. It's been such a good, positive, life-changing thing, because not only has it connected me with a lot of really cool people, but when you're out there, it also introduces you to so much more in nature. Like I do, like a buddy of mine, Cosmo. He's the guy who I go investigate a lot with, and you'll see him in a lot of my videos. And we, he teaches me how to gold pan, and we do rock hounding and do all these different things that out there that you're able to incorporate in while you're out there, looking for trying to collect evidence and stuff. And it's just a lot of fun, just even being out there, because I like to go to a lot of the remote areas where you get less human contamination, and really nobody goes out there, and really kind of go explore. It's been quite the ride. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely. I couldn't agree more with all that you mentioned there. Just getting out there and learning so much. I mean, especially if you already have an interest in just being outdoors or have a love for it, I think it go hand in hand. I mean, I always tell people, that kind of aren't really sure, what you look for Bigfoot, what's up with that? They're like, we just go out in the woods and have fun. Most of the time we don't find anything Bigfoot related, but hey, it's awesome to learn about stuff. I always mention the story, New Hampshire Sasquatch was in the chat. We went out, did some squatching kind of in my research area, and he's getting into foraging because he works with, restaurant business and everything. And he was explaining to me about all this stuff with foraging, which I didn't really know a whole lot about stuff in the fall that comes out around here. So it's just amazing. Like you mentioned, learning about gold panning, all sorts of cool stuff, just becoming more of a woodsman. Because I think ultimately, not only as Bigfoot researchers, but the better you are in the woods, the better you are going to be able to identify things and just have cool experiences. I mean, I'm working on a video now of just all the animals I've seen out in my research area. And I've had a trail camera out there pretty much since the summer began. And I've got a few cool videos of, some awesome critters, moose and bear and all that kind of stuff. And it's one of those byproducts that I think it's just awesome. And I think it increases people's awareness of the woods and the need for, I don't want to say environmentalism, but I guess I do, just kind of conservation, conserving these areas, keeping them wild. And as you mentioned, areas where there still can be areas where they're free from human contamination. We don't want everywhere looking like a city park, basically.
Yeah, and you kind of go to. There's a lot of areas up here in the North Cascades is where I usually kind of go hang out at. And there's so many beautiful areas, and yeah, it's funny how you were talking about the animals too that you encounter. And I got a really cool video of a black bear that me and my girlfriend encountered last year that came into our camp, and it was just a cool little black bear that was just eating up all the berries. And I was actually to get about 10 feet from it and got some really cool video on it. And it's just really cool to see, the animals in their natural habitat, and document them and share them with other people. Because, like a lot of the videos that I do, I consider them like tag along videos, or, where people just kind of come hang out and, this is what I'm seeing, this is what I'm doing. Because a lot of people like to see the environment that we go explore, areas where Bigfoot, is suspected to be. And so this is the environment that they live in. And that's what a lot of the videos are.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's part and parcel to, talking about this subject, is showing what these areas look like, and how I mean, mind blowing it is going to some of these spots. Like you were talking about some of the kind of undergrowth in the Pacific Northwest. I'll never forget, when we ran into Devil's Club out there, and that stuff is, somewhere along the way, Eli ended up, or one of us ended up calling it Devil's Lettuce. and then everyone started referring to it as devil's lettuce, which is funny. But man, that stuff is nasty. Fall in
Ooh.
it, it's all over the place. So, you think the ease of moving through these areas is really difficult for us as people, with our gear and all our tactical stuff and everything that we're taking out there to, keep our ourselves kind of alive, I guess. Just shows how out of tune we are in general with that environment. But yeah, there really is no place like the Pacific Northwest. Now, kind of getting into it a little bit, did you always focus on the Cascade area, that North Cascade area, or was it just like convenience of being able to go research those areas, or have you kind of been all over the place in Washington and other areas as well?
Well, it's just mainly Mount Rainier to Mount Baker is where I usually kind of go investigate, just because it's within a couple hours of my house, and I go a little further. Like I went to Jay's area. It's 3 hours usually, but with traffic, which apparently is all day, it adds an extra 2 hours on the trip. So it's a little harder to get to certain areas just because the traffic is getting really bad. And I was meaning to go hang out with Shane this last summer, but just life kind of gets in the way, and I didn't really have the opportunity to. But yeah, it's mainly in the North Cascades is where I put a lot of my focus in, and the areas that I go, it's funny. That's Doug Hychek with the Monster Quest. They did an episode out in one of the valleys that I go out there. They did a 10-day episode, and I didn't find much, but yeah, and but it's such a beautiful area, and it's so remote, and like the area that I go, like I go to this area. It's around a volcano. It's Glacier Peak, and it's one of the most remote volcanoes in Washington. And it has such a history of Bigfoot activity, and the area is so vast that people don't go for decades, really, and they just don't step foot for decades. And with the undergrowth here, it makes it very difficult to navigate some of these terrains. Especially if it's been logged within the last 60 to 80 years, which most of it has. And so what we're dealing with is what's kind of grown up since then. And so it's really kind of hard to navigate, where our real opportunity is basically game trails or, bushwhacking, or, try to navigate through and stuff. Just kind of getting back there. Never know what you're going to find.
Oh yeah, I can only imagine. Yeah, that's what I was thinking when I was there. If I lived this summer in Washington, I feel like I have such a heck of a hard time. You have the Olympics there, then you have Cascades, North Cascades, South Cascades, Mount Rainier, Mount St. Helens, that whole area. I would just have such a tough time dividing my time up between all these amazing areas, because they're all so incredible, and there's a long history in all those areas. But you mentioned that the area that you research has a long history of sightings. What are you aware of in terms of some of the stories, and are those that you've come across through research, or is it stuff that's online or kind of word of mouth? How does that work?
Yeah. Well, a lot of it's just kind of word of mouth, just like hearing random people, like, it's areas that like Bobo apparently goes, and all these different Bigfooters and stuff. So you start to hear stuff trickle out. It's like, oh, wow, you know that area too. And it's like kind of surprising to hear how many people kind of have gone out to this area just because of all the reported activity. There was an investigator, Cascade Bigfoot, that had a lot of reported activity out here, where he was pushed by one, and where he had a bunch of different sightings. And the Native Americans have a lot of history as well, talking about how the giants lived in this valley here, how they would trade salmons with them. Dr. Briggs Hall had his Bigfoot experience out there as well, and that's actually what they did the documentary, why they went out there and stuff. And so there is a lot of different things. For me personally, that's actually where I've had a lot of, what a lot of people would say is Bigfoot activity, like wood knocking with something back and forth in the forest. And these are really remote areas where, the likelihood of it being a human being is pretty remote. And I kind of vetted it out that it's definitely not a woodpecker, not a tree banging against another tree. Because how it started is I would go to this area. As soon as I got out of the car, a single wood knock would happen. And it's a wood knock that is like a home run being hit. It's loud, it's clear. And it's like, oh, wow. And of course, you're never recording, because all the good stuff happens when you're never recording. And so, I went back there a few times and had the same experiences. Nothing would happen and stuff. So I took some friends back there, because they had some friends in town. And so I took them up there, and I'm like, yeah, that's where I have wood knocking stuff. And I'm like, yeah, as soon as I get out of the car, there's wood knocks. And so we all get out of the car, nothing. There was not a sound. And then so we kind of go back into this area and stuff, and I'm like, oh, try and hit on a tree. And so I did that, and then we actually got a response, and it was 4 wood knocks back and forth, 4 of us, 4 wood knocks. I don't know if that means anything, but it was a really interesting experience. And this is an area where me and my buddy Cosmo does a lot of exploring, and we were shadowed by something in the forest. Actually, I have a video of it from like a couple of years ago. You know, we had this really interesting thing shadowing us in the forest, and you know, bears usually take off fairly quickly. You know, mountain lions will stalk a person for, you know, most of the day, but that wasn't what this is. It's interesting, and so we've had a lot of really good experiences out in this particular area, and that's why it's one of our high interest areas. But like you were talking about, it's hard to divvy up the time from that area, which is a good area, to this other area, which is a really good area, and this other area, which is really good area. So it's really hard, and you know, weather plays a factor in as well, as far as where we go, because right now we can't really do much deep mountain stuff because of the snow. So really starting to pile up out there, and you know, the roads start to get closed, and it just kind of becomes dangerous back there, where it's just not very safe to go during the wintertime. And you know, with so much snow back there, it doesn't seem like Bigfoot is going to really be back there anyways. You know, it seems like they kind of migrate within a certain territory that they're familiar with, but yeah, kind of like nomadic in a way, but still within a big vicinity, so they can take use of the natural resources, especially given with the season, because you're talking about mushrooms and stuff coming out at the late season. So that's a really good viable food source for them. Technically, all year round, you'll have mushrooms growing. You know, there's a lot of salmon berries. The berry season comes in, which is, you know, a huge resource for them. You know, we got banana slugs here that, you know, it's something they could eat. You know, and I wonder if Bigfoot even caches their food of, you know, in a way, you know, they cache it for later use. Because you hear stories, one of the stories back here in the North Cascades, where a guy came across a Bigfoot, and it had this big leaf, but it had all these mushrooms on it, and it had like a slug on it and stuff. So it's like a dinner plate almost, you know. So yeah, it kind of makes you wonder, you know, with that whole thing.
Yeah, it just seems to make sense. I mean, if you know, we're kind of with the subject, obviously so much is based on speculation and uncertainty. We're just sort of hypothesizing, or at some points taking shots in the dark too. But that sort of behavior, it would have to be going on. I mean, unless we're not finding all these kills or all this other stuff, as far as we know. But yeah, that's interesting. You mentioned about you're just dealing with all that weather and the snow and everything. Obviously, you guys get a lot of rain. You're very famous for rain. Now, does that Cascade area get as much as, say, like the Olympics or in the coastal region, or is it a little bit more mild, or is it just because it's mountain weather, it's all over the place?
Yeah, it gets a similar rain pattern that the Olympic Peninsula gets. Right now, we're dealing with like so many what they're called atmospheric rivers, where it's like apparently just rivers just dumping on us, and we're having some serious flooding going on, where, you know, towns are getting washed away. You know, it's just it's getting bad, and you know, we have another series of storms coming in right now, actually. So yeah, the weather's kind of getting kind of tough back there.
Yeah, I heard a lot of stuff in BC about the flooding and everything going on. That's obviously not too far north of where you guys are at. Terrible stuff. But yeah, when you're talking about the wood knocks, just because I see there's a couple people in the comments saying they've heard some wood knocks. You know, New Hampshire Sasquatch says, heard a real decent single wood knock with my son last Monday, had my recorder going, but of course the kid was being loud. Yeah. And I think Brian and Chewy also said, you know, kind of something about a power knock. Yeah, and that's the thing. I think so many people in the Bigfoot world, or people that look into this subject, a lot of the experiences tend to be wood knock related. I've experienced them as well in multiple different places. We just had some really weird stuff when we were out in Utah in the middle of the high Uinta Mountains. I mean, as remote as you could be, we're stopped dead in our tracks in the middle of the trail by something banging right to the left of us in the woods. And then every time we turn the lights on, you'd hear a sound from another direction, then you'd hear this thing again. So it's one of those things that I think it's just really interesting. I mean, when we talk about wood knocks, and obviously not every wood knock we hear is a Sasquatch. We don't even really know. We can't confirm. Obviously, I always say that, you know, you can't confirm, but it's thought to be. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's, with the wood knocks, it's like I try to vet things out as much as possible. So just because that's what you need to do. And just, I'm having a hard time finding a natural occurrence for what I've heard, these wood knocks. I'm having a really hard time, and I'm very certain it's not a woodpecker. We get some big woodpeckers here, and I hear
For sure.
woodpeckers all the time. And I'm not, it just doesn't seem like it's that. So I'm having an incredibly hard time trying to vet out these wood knocks. And again, when we're talking about humans, there's a reason why I go to these certain areas, because there's nobody out there. There's really no reason for people to go out there. Not saying that people don't, but you kind of
Right.
know when there is somebody out there. And speaking of wood knocks, actually, I think it was this year or last year, me and my buddy Cosmo, we went down to another researchers down by Mount Rainier, actually, been freed with Bigfoot ops, and we're out there, helping him investigate an area where he's had a lot of activity on. And my buddy Cosmo was talking about an encounter story that he had, that he was talking about, and right in the middle of his story, there was a loud, very clear wood knock right there, and it's actually recorded on my channel from like the 7, 8, 9 months ago plus. But it's an interesting wood knock because it's one of those boom, and it's like, well, that was really unusual. And this is an area where Bigfoot has been seen on multiple times, and a lot of different reports coming out from different people, and interesting evidence that's come out of that area. So it's like, I didn't see what did it, but not too many things will do that. And I wonder if a wood knock is actually wood knocking, or if it's their mouth, doing a pop, or
Right.
a chest thing, or a rock on a tree. So, because here it's like, it's really hard to find a good wood knocking stick, because a lot of it gets waterlogged and it just breaks. Actually, I have a video of us doing demonstrations of like wood knocks, what you would commonly find, and the branch always breaks to the point where we have to bring our own wood knocking sticks out just in order to do them. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's something I noticed out there too, was just how a lot of it was punky, it was dead. And then, of
Mm-hmm.
course, that's why a lot of people suggest either maybe the mouth thing, like you're saying, tooth or something, a clap.
Something, yeah.
If you do a clap really loud, the last time I got, wood knock like sounds in my research area last May, I did 3 claps, and it was after that I got these very woody sounding responses. But I think in general, I mean, yeah, one of the comments was, woodpeckers, or where was it? I'm losing in the chat here. But something, woodpeckers at 3 a.m. from Kaiju Ninja 1985. It's like you hear at the times when people hear them. I mean, Mike says maybe fresh pine cone drops. You obviously have to look at those possibilities. I mean, as I mentioned, I don't think every wood knock you hear is obviously a Sasquatch. There's other things that happen. Trees can hit trees with the wind, especially if it's windy and you start hearing wood knocks. That's a little bit maybe suspicious, but I'm of the same thought of you. Like it's very hard to explain some of them. I've heard one that sounded like something hitting the middle of the metal power line pole in a cut right in that area. It sounded like this loud metallic sound. I mean, I don't know, trees popping. That's what I've heard that as well. I don't think I've ever heard trees popping from anybody. And I've talked to a guy who's experienced wood knocks, who owns a Christmas tree farm, and they have lumber and they do timber stuff. He says he never heard anything like the wood knocks that he heard out on his property. I don't know. It's just, you obviously have to look at the possibilities that it's not. But as you mentioned, there's times where it's very difficult to explain away.
And I try to vet those out as much as possible. I really try to examine what I'm experiencing out there, just to make sure, because you just don't want to be wrong about what you're interpreting out there, and
Sure.
It's just a really hard one to figure out, because, like I say, I'm pretty confident it's not a woodpecker, and I'm out there enough to know the sounds of the forest, and it's not anything like that. It's not a natural thing, and it's just a weird one that, I don't know if Bigfoot's real. I haven't seen one. My whole goal is to kind of see one, just because it's really cool mystery, and I really want to know. And the only way I feel I'm going to find out is if I go out there myself, to go out and look, and go to these areas where Bigfoot's supposed to be, so I can hopefully go get my wish, which a lot of people tell me, oh, no, you don't want to see a Bigfoot. I'm like, no, I kind of do.
I hear the same thing. And it's, every time I've experienced the really crazy woodknocks, I will try to run towards it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's stupid or not. Some people tell me, yeah, it is. Same kind of thing that you've probably experienced. People thinking, well, you want to see one until you see one, right? But I'm of the same sort of feeling of you. I'd like a confirmation in that regard, because there's just you talk to so many witnesses. You have these other weird things happen, 3 a.m. or whenever they go on. You get to a point where, it may happen like some of the researchers, the Four Horsemen, that never had an experience, never had a sighting. I don't know. But that being said, definitely some interesting comments coming in. Wasatch, Sasquatch, Wasatch Wendigo says the really quiet knocks supposedly can be done by bark beetles, but I'm skeptical of that too. Interesting. I mean, I'm sure they're like the smaller ones. I'm always very suspicious of little things.
Mm-hmm.
Mike
Well,
Ann,
I actually have a video on my channel too of a tree making rock clacking sounds too,
yeah,
and so there is definitely natural explanations. But for the stuff I heard, it's like a home run getting hit. Like it's very distinctive. Yeah, power knock, and it's hard. I don't know if a beetle or a pine cone will be able to make that type of power knock. And like I say, I'm out there a lot, so
right, and that's part of it too, is just getting more familiar with those sounds, as you said, because I can't tell you the amount of times I've heard people mentioning, hearing knocks, and it turns out to be woodpecker. They don't know what the sound of pileated woodpecker sounds like, or whatever other woodpecker, and once you get familiar with it, you go out there. It's almost weird when I don't hear a woodknock, or not a woodknock, a woodpecker, excuse me. I like it to be with the woodknocks that way, but if these things are obviously out there, I don't think they're always going to be doing this sort of thing. But Mike Ann says, I got great video. Pine cones dropping in Central Florida. Acorn video is good too. Yeah, you hear the stuff about stuff being dropping on people's tents. I mean, whenever I'm camping, especially towards the fall, you get stuff falling on your tent or on your car. It can make a loud noise. It's different when you have 8 different objects that are loud, you can see crashing through the trees coming at you, like Carrick and I experienced when we were in Vermont, that I still just have no explanation for that. And on that note, Carrick is working on a little comparison video, because I went out there in October and did a little recreation, had my brother standing and throwing stuff kind of where our tent would have been. Is interesting. But Mothman 46, what's going on, man? He says Les Odell has a video where a guy does a mouth wood knock noise. Oh, awesome. I'll have to ask Les about that. Really interesting. Yeah.
It seems like something like that would be more likely than them carrying around a stick, and or maybe they use their hand, and I don't know. It doesn't seem like they're carrying around a stick, but it's exactly like a wood knock sound. At least all the ones that I've heard.
Yeah. Oh, Carrick, he says the comparison video will be done tonight. Okay, cool. So that'll probably be out soon enough. But no, I lost my train of thought there. But no, I think it's there are sightings where people have seen Bigfoots with sticks or club-looking things that I've heard of, and a lot of the ones I've heard out here east seem to be, there's a definite woodiness to them. I mean, I remember the first ones that I really heard that I had never really experienced woodknocks before. That was in Ohio with Dallas and Wayne. Those two big.
Oh, I love man. Oh,
and we heard these knocks that, I mean, I still listen to them to this day, and they'll give me chills, because there's like there's a clunkiness to it, and then there's all of a sudden the last one. There's 3, and then the fourth one sounds like as if somebody switched directions on the tree. Very clunky, but I can totally understand too. You see videos of gorillas making those weird thumping noises with on the trail camera. It's like, kind of run at the camera. So there's probably a whole host of sounds that could be utilized out there in the woods, I would imagine. So I mean, like, language is tiered, right? Humans, you talk to your grandfather differently than you talk to your friend. So maybe there's, I don't know, I'm not getting into the Bigfoot language kind of thing, but I'd imagine like animals have different ways of communicating as well, different sort of systems. So
well, coyotes alone have over 150 different sounds that they make to communicate, along with like facial and body expressions as well, to help communicate what they're doing and stuff, what their intent
absolutely is. No, it really is. And I mean, just knowing the fact that coyotes change their pitch and everything, try and make it sound like they're a bigger group. And I think that connects right back to what you said earlier about knowing the area, knowing the environment, getting more familiar with those sounds that because animals can make a lot of weird noises. And
oh boy.
And as you know, I'm sure you're obviously aware of a lot of the older recordings and that kind of stuff. That's coyote or other animals that are misidentified. That sounds absolutely terrifyingly creepy, but
Well,
turns out to be something.
Yeah, I actually have some of that recorded from earlier this year, and it was when I was working with Curious Cryptid, Steve. He's a really good guy, and we were just out there. And it's funny. It's like whenever we had like these weird sounds come out, I'm always with Steve. But yeah, this one time, it was a full moon night, and it was like a single coyote that was just doing a serenade, and it sounded like, wow, it just sounded amazing. But it's scary too if you thought it was a Bigfoot or something, but it sounded so raw and not what you'd expect a coyote to sound like. And within those screams and the calls and stuff, it sounded like some of the old Bigfoot recordings and stuff that you're talking about, like the Snohomish Screamer and the Puyallup Screamer, which Thomas Stingbird actually was able to fully verify what made, I think it was like those sounds. It was a coyote. Him and Bill Miller came across the coyote doing those exact sounds, and he was shocked that a coyote was able to produce this sound. He said it sounded like something was just reaching in and squeezing it like a little plush doll or whatever to produce that sound. And then we also, me and him were there one night. It was like 10, 11 o'clock at night, and we hear this, just two screams. It sounded like a male screaming and a female screaming, just screaming, and it was like, whoa, what, just like out of the blue, randomly, just like probably 40 feet from us. And luckily we recorded everything and all the time that we're out there now, and learn from your mistakes, and we're able to catch this on recording. Again, it's on my channel as well, and Steve did an awesome job cleaning it up too. So he really isolated the sounds. But it's actually a barred owl. It's a call that is just, in real time. It sounded like a Bigfoot male screaming to a Bigfoot female
right.
in real time. And I wonder, and we didn't pick up the owl sound in real time when we were listening it for whatever reason. We just missed that part of it. And but if we didn't have it recorded, we probably would have walked away like, hey, this could have been a Bigfoot. But
Bigfoot, right.
Yeah, and but that goes to show you doing the due diligence of always recording, always having a audio recorder out there to help collect data. What we do now is audio triangulation, where we set up 3 recorders so we can triangulate the distance and where stuff kind of comes in at to help isolate distance and range and all these various other things.
That's smart. I'm going to steal that idea from you.
Yeah, well,
absolutely credit. No, that's a great idea, because I'm just thinking, we usually have. I tried to run a recorder in my tent. We'll do one outside. I had the 2 recorders. One of them broke. It ate an SD card, and I basically was trying to save the SD card, and it was destroyed in the process. It was a beat up old Zoom H1, but we'll have to give that a try. That sounds great. But no, I think it's a really interesting conversation talking about wood knocks and audio and all that kind of stuff. And Carrick brings up an interesting point. He says chimps also hit trees with rocks as a form of long distance communication. Some interesting food for thought on wood knocks. Yeah, I always love bringing that up, and that's certainly an interesting point. Possible parallel.
Yeah, it makes sense. Because that's what one of the hypotheses is that it's they're using rocks, which are readily available everywhere here.
Right.
Hey, Leon.
Yeah, Leon's in the chat. We got a lot of great people.
Oh yeah.
Jay says porcupines can make a bunch of weird noises. Yeah, they can. They can also make some strange appearances.
They could mimic a Bigfoot mimicking a porcupine.
Oh boy. Hopefully some folks get that in the chat. But I think well, I know there's a bunch of questions popping in already, so I'll just start taking some questions. That cool. We'll continue, because I still have some questions for you as well. But oh boy, I'm so terrible at this. If you guys could, I have the little thing going on the bottom of the screen. If you could just put your questions either in all caps or just write question in all caps or Q in all caps, just so it's easier. Because when I'm scrolling through here, when the chat kind of goes nuts, it's always tough to find it out. But My Eyes asks, what is the strangest thing you have experienced in the woods?
I would probably say like the wood knock type of stuff. That's probably the strangest thing. I try to do my best to vet stuff out while I'm out there, having the experience to try and deal with it then and there. But I haven't really had anything too like far out there as far as I thought I saw an orb one time. I woke up really early in the morning, was driving on this mountain and stuff. It's like many years ago. And I'm like, I was looking across the valley there. I'm like, oh my God, there's an orb right there. And it's just moving that way. And I look closer. I'm like, oh, that's a truck on the other ridge over there. It was their headlights. It's like, well, that sucked. But no, I haven't. I'm always open for it, and I come across a lot of cool stuff out there, like Native American burial grounds, unmarked ones that are grandfathered in the national forest. I came across a really cool dumping ground for cars from like the 20s and 30s or 30s and 40s, and so you find some really cool stuff back there that that you can just go find off trail. You find old logging equipment and just old bushwhacking shelters and stuff.
Yeah.
It's really cool what you can find back there.
Yeah, and that goes back to that not only you're out there looking for Bigfoot, but you're learning about the environment. You're finding all this cool stuff. You're just finding evidence of what people had in the past. And maybe there was a town, maybe there was mining areas, maybe there was a logging community that's now nature has taken it back over.
Yeah, actually, I want to get a metal detector because I've researched that and I found old settlements from, like back in the late 1800s and stuff. And if you go look at it right now, it looks like nothing's ever been there because the forest took it back. But I want to get a metal detector and kind of go back up and really kind of explore some of these old settlements a little further to see maybe find something cool. I don't know. I always like to find those diamonds in the rough, places. I actually came across a friend of mine. We went down to Oregon and they took me to a time capsule house where the story is the lady's kids died suddenly and she just up and left. And the house has been a time capsule from what I've dated, from what I've seen is probably 1986 is when it was last touched, and everything is left as it was. It's like they just up and left, and the kids' ribbons are still hanging in their bedroom. And I have a video from it from like a year or two ago if people want to kind of check that out. But it was really a surreal experience because it's like you feel like you're breaking into somebody's house, but nobody's lived in this house for decades, and everything all the way to like their dishes and clothes still in the closet and stuff. It's like, wow, it's amazing. It's such a remote little area of Oregon too. It's kind of scary.
I can imagine, seeing a magazine or something from that time period just laying around. No, I love that. I love those abandoned places. I actually watch a lot of that stuff on YouTube. People going into these abandoned spots.
Same here.
That's always some fun stuff. One of the guys there, I think he was exploring with Josh. I know he was originally from New England too. I haven't watched this stuff recently, but I remember, a few years ago, I'd watch that stuff and I'd go try and find some of these locations and some of these old abandoned mines and that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of fun. It's just another byproduct of when you're out there having fun in the field. But we have a question from Katie F. who asks, Brent, what do you think of Nia Bay? I don't know.
That's I've never been there. I live in next to the Cascades. I think that there is over on the coast near the Olympic Peninsula. Yeah. So I don't really have too much experience there. I've never been there. Sorry.
Right. No worries. This is a comment from earlier. I got to read this comment from Tate. It says, Robbie Knievel is the next moneymaker, even more knowledgeable than Dr. Meldrum. This is going to be like the roast Robbie Knievel show now. Until I have him on, if Robbie Knievel is watching this, I know you know more than all of us Bigfooters combined. So I'd love to have you on to share the knowledge. For folks that don't know, obviously we're talking about that marvel of a documentary that is.
I loved it. I loved it, man. If you can get him on, that would be so amazing. I mean, I had no idea he was so into the subject.
It was, and seeing like Bobo and the Bluff Creek guys, kind of awkwardly the exchanges, and there's a lot of inside jokes with Tate and a few of us that were spawned from our love of that movie. It's a cult classic at this point, but awesome to see you. Obviously, Tate was on last week when we were talking about the books and everything. But Mike Ann asks, is Brent finding large rock piles in his area near historical villages?
We find, the rock piles, but they're usually hiking related, either an old trail or
Sand.
yeah, nothing too like, wow, how did that happen? Yeah, nothing, uh, no borders for rock piles. Again, here the undergrowth overtakes everything so quick, so there might be stuff out there, but you have to dig it out from all the undergrowth because the moss and everything just kind of it's just going to cover that stuff up incredibly quick.
Yeah. No, definitely. Thanks for the question. Kevin with another says, if Robbie jumped a Bigfoot in the forest and nobody was there to see, he would still be the best researcher ever. Absolutely. That's good. So question from Carrick. He asks, so many people who become convinced of the Sasquatch's existence are experienced campers and hikers. What might this say about the phenomenon? Does it lend it credibility?
Yeah, I'll say if you guys want some really good encounter stories and stuff, go to your local hiking groups and just type in the search bar Bigfoot, and because I do that here, and it gets brought up occasionally too, and it's amazing. Usually that thread there will have hundreds of comments, and yeah, you'll have people laughing at you and stuff, or making fun of it, but there's so many people telling their story like, hey, I had this happen, and these are all people that don't have anything to gain. They're not trying to get attention. They're like, they just came across this post and just said, hey, this is what kind of happened and stuff, and so those are good reliable sources because they're out there, they're very familiar with it versus somebody who's like a flatlander who's never really kind of goes out to the forest and that thing there.
No, totally. I wholeheartedly agree. Checking also backpacking forums, all
Oh
that
yeah.
sort of stuff. It's a great idea. And same thing as like the Facebook groups. I've even found one. I've gotten like 4 or 5 different reports up here in New Hampshire just from this group. Was like Forgotten New Hampshire. It was about abandoned places. Is that kind of throws back to the abandoned places. And somebody inevitably asked the question, "Has anyone ever anything weird?" And then people pile in with their questions. Like you said, half of them are joking or
Mm-hmm.
sarcastic, but then you get a few ones. And I reached out to some people, and yeah, they either had a sighting or they had something really weird noise wise happening while they're in the middle of a bushwhack up a mountain that nobody really goes in. So I can
Yeah,
only imagine in the Pacific Northwest how awesome that is to have that resource. And you guys have so much hiking in so many different areas.
yeah.
So that's a great resource. Very cool. Especially I think those reports are better probably than some of the stuff that comes from within the Bigfoot community. There's perhaps a little bit less of a bias there. The people might
Yeah.
not be as exposed to all the nonsense that we are.
Yeah, Bigfoot's pretty well known here. Like it's actually fairly accepted. It's everywhere. I think it's probably more accepted here than probably most places in the country for sure. Like people
Yeah.
are more willing to openly talk about it. But some other good stuff too is the non Bigfoot Facebook groups too, like logging groups and forest
Yeah.
group, bushwhack groups. Because you can actually learn a lot. That's actually where I learned that those inverted trees with the roots sticking out. How they're shoved into the ground. Yeah, loggers do that to mark boundaries and roads and close off roads. I actually have a video of where the forest department partially buried a log in the middle of the road to block that access so you can't drive through there and stuff. So yeah, it's amazing where you can find information that's pertains to the Bigfoot phenomena in non-Bigfooting Facebook groups like logging groups and stuff. And I've actually came across some very interesting claims that somebody made, a very elderly person made about the Bluff Creek area back in the 50s, about making fake tracks, how they did it, and how they did it is like, oh wow, that's kind of wild, because a lot of people are trying to figure out how can somebody make Bigfoot prints and not have that, still have the stride, but not have that impact of like you're running and jumping. How it will displace more.
Yeah, right.
So what they did is they have a pickup truck and they have a 2x4 lane or going off the side of the pickup truck off the bed. Somebody is bracing or is being held up on that 2x4. And so what they're doing is the truck is driving down the road. That person will just step up and they kind of like float and guide, because that 2x4 is giving them the leverage to, basically make those strides and not have that impact. And and again, I came across this in a logging group as some
That's awesome.
random thing, and it's like, wow, it's just. And he had a lot of interesting stuff of other stuff that kind of about that area. And it's like, wow, it's amazing stuff where you can learn about stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's really interesting. I'd love to give that a try. Maybe, try to fake some tracks, just to see, because that's one of those things kind of help you determine something. But oh, come on, Brent, doesn't it sound more exciting to have it be a Bigfoot that stabbed the tree and upside down? Come on, why are you raining on people's parades?
I know. I get that a lot. I get that a lot. For me, it's like I just want to share what I learned for people, because when I came into this, I was incredibly naive to the point where I believed virtually everything I came across. I was going to pay Matt Johnson $1,000 just to go take me to his Bigfoot area, pre-craziness, to go show me a Bigfoot, because I just want to see one that bad. And it's quite the journey. And so I just try to help people along the way. There's a lot of different roads you can take, and a lot of people want to take a road that is true to what realities kind of is, and I feel that's kind of the road I'm on, and made mistakes along the way and whatever. And so I just let people know, hey, this is what I've found out, this is what I've learned, and I'm hoping that maybe somebody will use that to go get the evidence that we need to kind of blow this wide open, so we can all have that satisfaction of confirmation, because that would be amazing to share with everybody. My big goal again is just for myself, but if I could share it with other people, that would be great. But I don't know if I'm going to be that person.
Well, major respect for that. I mean, it's you're kind of weeding through the BS in a lot of ways, and there is plenty of that. I mean, we talk about it a lot in these circles, obviously, the insanity, and the Matt Johnson stuff aside, just even some of the more mundane kind of common knowledge sort of things that becomes common knowledge because someone's just said, oh, well, this is what a Bigfoot does, and then it turns into, okay, yeah, Bigfoots make stick structures or do this or do that. It's just sort of one of those things that just gets repeated enough that it becomes reality, essentially. And
I try to give people other avenues of, because a lot of people would be like, oh, Bigfoot makes tree structures. It's like, yeah, maybe, but there's all these other communities, bushwhackers, that do also make these tree structures that you're coming across. They're identical, and here's videos of people making them and stuff like that. So but I Bigfoot probably has to make some sort of structure, but I think their structure is going to blend into the forest where we don't see it, because they're not going to make a structure where somebody can sneak up on them, like it has a strategic vulnerability that is going to compromise their life pretty much, because it seems like they're really good about being elusive, and so it just seems like they wouldn't make a mistake of making a structure that we're actually going to find. I think it's just going to blend into the forest. We'll walk right by it, not even see it. Maybe even have like a fake entrance of sorts, where a rock could be pulled down. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie The Croods, but in one of the scenes, the father pulls a rock in front of the cave entrance to keep animals out.
It's like the animated thing.
The animated one. Yeah. And but it's something like that. It's like you could just what looks like a boulder just sitting there is actually a door for them, but we just walk right by it and don't even realize it. I think that's probably what more we should be looking for versus the low-hanging fruit of all these bush crash structures that people find right off the logging road and stuff.
I know. No, go ahead.
I just want to encourage people to keep digging a little more. Don't just stop at, oh yeah, Bigfoot did it. I encourage people to keep digging just a little bit more, because they might find other sources out there which could cause what you are coming across.
No, yeah, and Bigfoot should probably be the last thing you're assuming something in the woods is, unless you see one directly in front of you. That's another story. But it reminds me of this story I was told. A friend of mine, there's a famous mountain here in New Hampshire called Mount Monadnock, where there's this hut that was built in the 1930s inside of a rock, and it has this kind of metal door that looks like rock, and there's really no official directions to it. It's kind of kept secret, and from what I've heard, I haven't actually managed to find it yet. I haven't been up there in a while, but people will walk right by it, or they kind of in the area, they'll be right near it, and they just don't even see it because they're not looking for that. And that goes to awareness in the woods. How many times people are just focused on the trail? They're not looking up or down in all these other directions, and how easily distracted we are out in the woods. And we're not really aware of these kinds of things. So, but yeah, a lot of times you see these structures, and they'll be like what's left of a debris shelter or a lean-to or one of
Our
those
Native
little
American, Native American, tribal area type of thing. Because like all the forest here, really all the forest here in America is Native American originally, and so we come across, like say, we come across some of their things that are grandfathered in, and even including some of the shelters that we can come across and stuff. They're really prominent, especially when you're on or next to a reservation, especially up in Canada.
I can imagine. I mean, there's some of those tribes that still probably practice those shaman rituals where those guys go out and live out in the woods and have sort of an awakening or whatever it is they do, culturally for them. That's important. So definitely good stuff to keep in mind. I absolutely love the level-headedness regarding that. But here's a question from TAC1 who asks, what are your thoughts regarding aggressive behavior reports in the southern states?
I didn't know that they were more aggressive. Well, I guess, like because you have the skunk ape and the booger, and maybe they just don't like the heat, and they just get easier pissed off because it's so hot, and they're like, don't bother me. But I wonder sometimes if the Bigfoot, what we interpret as aggressive, is them just trying to get us away from them, get out of the situation. Because what are we supposed to do when we come across a bear? We're supposed to be bad and big and try to scare it away. And I wonder if that's what they do sometimes, because it seems like they don't take people as much as they could, especially here, because there's not an insane amount of missing people out in the forest that are just that just disappear. I think a lot of David Palatti's 411 is just him misrepresenting what some of the cases are. And leaving out evidence. I've caught him doing it because I was on some of the searches that he talks about, and he totally leaves out information, doesn't even bother to add it in, and this is pertinent information, and so he seems like he's leaving stuff out or kind of mislead or misrepresenting it to help create a narrative for whatever he wants to do. Just what I noticed.
Well, there's plenty of that out there.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Certain narratives sell better than others. That's for sure.
And the aggressive Bigfoot is a big sell, yeah. But I don't know. That's one thing I can think of is just maybe it's the heat or something. I don't know, because it seems like that they're cool here.
Yeah, I don't know if it's one of those things, you're just living in a swamp. Maybe you're just getting shot at by people all the time.
Mosquitoes all the time, and man, I know I start getting irritated after like getting eaten by mosquitoes.
Right. Oh yeah. But that happens in some northern areas too. I've never had worse experience with bugs than northern Maine, which is at latitude. Just in the summer, absolutely awful. But no, some people talk about inbreeding and that sort of stuff. I mean, I don't know. That's
we really don't know. Just
no idea.
The important thing is why you're out there is to be safe. Take the 10 essentials. Tell people where you are, and don't try to go above your skill level. And
don't be a hero.
Yeah, just always be safe, and you'll be all right.
Appreciate the question, TAC1. Tate asks, question, is Brent a Pabst Blue Ribbon fan? This may be the litmus test if you can be friends with Tate.
Yeah, well, actually, I'm not much of a drinker, but that's a good one. Yeah, yeah.
Tate, I'm sure is satisfied with that answer. That's funny.
We got a lot of other stuff to have in common with.
Absolutely. Mike asks, can Brent see a pattern with sightings in former settlements?
I haven't seen any nothing like Bigfoot hangs around old settlements. Again, these settlements here get overtaken by the forest incredibly quick. But I haven't seen any sort of pattern with that.
Right on. There are a few other people that have come in. I haven't been paying attention to the chat as much But we have Hairy Man Hoodwinkses.
Oh, Nikki. Hey.
Hoaxes and Hoodwinkses, excuse me.
Yeah, her show is on. I help her out on her show. She does an amazing job. Her show is 4 o'clock on Sundays, and she actually had Rick Dyer on there.
Yeah,
and
I think last week we were talking about that because a few of us have been watching that debate, and it was just hilarious when, especially, well, it was entertaining, but when Steve came on, that was great. Steve.
Oh, that was like amazing. It's like, I don't know how many times Steve said, son, now listen up. It's like, it was cool. It was really good, insightful, because he was able to show people that hoaxing does happen in the subject, and people lie to you straight to your face, and it's a really good example.
Definitely.
Oh, hey, B.
B's in. We have Estelle Harrington. How's it going? I saw Joe, Western New York. Bigfoot was in here.
Joe, yeah.
Joe, what's going on, man?
Hey, man.
Who's that guy? Brent.
Hey, man. I hope you're doing good. Shoot me a message later.
Absolutely. Yeah, awesome. Just a ton of cool people in the chat. I'm just trying to find one of the latest questions here. They always keep slipping by.
They must think somebody else is supposed to be on tonight.
But anyway, I'll just ask one of my questions. So you mentioned, when you kind of first started out your Bigfoot journey, you're believing a lot of the stuff you saw online. What do you think is kind of the biggest problem with, I don't want to say the Bigfoot community, but this topic in general nowadays? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I think the biggest issue is misunderstanding. We misunderstand each other, and because of that, we don't communicate well to each other and communicate what our beliefs are, why we don't believe certain things, why we take certain stances. So I think that's probably one of the biggest issues in the subject, because this is a subject that there's no information, there's no hard facts, so people can come in and create whatever narrative they want. You have some people doing it for nefarious reasons. You have some people that are, they just are mistaken, and the whole spectrum of it and stuff. It's so I just try to do my best. I'm learning better how to communicate to people, especially in this subject, so I could communicate to them and not have any sort of emotional discharge from them, where they're going to start attacking me or something, where we can have civil discussions. And for me personally, I'm learning more, and I'm getting better and better at communicating that with people, and try to really discuss the hard facts of why I believe, this isn't real evidence, or why I think that, or, why somebody might say this or whatever. And so, it's just it's a tough thing to navigate. I know there's been some turmoil in the whole community, how it's run by the asylums, as Thomas would say. It's a community run by asylums, and which is true in a lot of ways. And we know that coming into it now. If you're in it for a short amount of time, you start to learn that. And the thing is, you just got to go gravitate toward the people who are going where you want to go, and do the things that you want to do, and just go learn from them, and try to kind of grow that whole thing, and just try to achieve the goals that you have set for yourself going forward, be it the research, because not everybody can go out and research. Some people just love the stories, and whatever you're into, just be cool with it, and as Derek Randalls would say, don't be a dick.
That's a good point. Yeah, absolutely. And as Thomas Steenberg would say, stick to the facts, don't deviate from the facts. But no, it's surprising. You think, the era of communications, right? We're constantly plugged in. We're constantly talking to people. We talk to people that, live across the country. We're on 2 different coasts right now. We're always talking with folks all over the place, but we're losing the ability to communicate. And that's maybe a broader societal issue, I think, in general. But I've seen it, I've been into kind of actively, publicly at least, into the Bigfoot stuff since also around 2015, 2016. So almost 6 years as well, like yourself. And there's been times where I just get so fed up, I get burnt out, and I'm like, I'm going to go look at the Lake Champlain monster.
Yeah.
And stuff. And I think I see that a lot. It's where people either they get burnt out, or they kind of find their niche. They're in sort of a little group area. And it's sort of strange. But as Central Florida Bigfoot says, Matt says, stop with the good logic, Brent. You're killing us smalls.
This
Matt's
another good guy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Matt is awesome. I've had Matt on the show, and hoping to link up with him. We're probably doing some stuff in Florida at some
Yeah,
point. So
but it is hard
yeah.
to not get burned out in this subject, to not get jaded, and I mean
Oh
it can
yeah.
happen incredibly easy. It could happen in one conversation, really,
Oh yeah.
and the thing is, it's just really important to uh, realize that, recognize it, take time for yourself. That's why I don't do a ton of podcasts or anything. It's just you try to give yourself that buffer there. And another good thing is to find people to help keep you grounded in the subject as
Right.
well, which is really incredibly important. And it's tough, but it's because I've been there. I've been like burned out. I've actually left the subject for months on end, just because you're so frustrated, you're so disappointed
Yeah.
what is being presented, that you just feel that there's no hope out there, so you step away, then you get back into it, and uh, you know, I don't know. I'm hopeful. I'm really hopeful for 2022, because I'm going to make my biggest effort into, really exploring this subject as much as I can. For 2022, I have a lot of goals that I have set, and things that I kind of want to do, and really kind of go out and want to achieve them. And it's, I don't know. That's all you can really do, is try and plan it out and try to set things up the best they can. It's not always going to work out, but it's kind of the best you can do.
Sure.
And try to have fun with it. Go to these conferences. I like to think of them as a Bigfoot celebration. You're not going to
Yeah.
go learn about Bigfoot. You're not going to go learn some groundbreaking thing, but we should just go celebrate the subject with these people that are there, who obviously like the subject too. And granted, you'll have different opinions, different views of it,
Yeah.
which is fine. We should celebrate each other's differences, and not really have that be the judging factor of that person there, because all the bigfooting people, the woo, the skeptics, whoever, we're a small minority of people, and
Yeah.
compared to all the rest of the world, I mean, I think only
Broader
what
society.
10%,
Yeah.
10-12% believe in Bigfoot. And
Not
so
just people who believe. That's not even necessarily people who are actively researching or who go to conferences, who do this. Millions of people will watch shows like Finding Bigfoot or Monster Quest, but what percentage of that actually goes out? And that's the thing. And
or believes, or
yeah,
who
right.
thinks that there's something to it. I guess belief is a bad word, but who think that there might be something to the subject. And
Oh
it's an
yeah.
incredibly small amount that we should just, I don't know. I have friends who have all different beliefs. I have friends who are complete woo, and we still go out and go do what we do out there. And just because we're able to communicate to each other, people understand where I'm at, and I understand where they're at, and we just kind of respect each other's stance, and interpretation of events and evidence. And if you can do that, you can basically go work with anybody. I'm more about collaborating with somebody that I'm cool with, that I can get
Yeah.
along with, that has a good vibe and stuff, versus what they believe. Because I've gone out with people who believe similar stuff that I do, and they're assholes. I can't even stand them. Like,
Right. No, totally.
it's just because we got the same belief doesn't mean we're going to get along. And so I prefer to go with the people, despite their belief, just how what their passion is, what they're kind of looking for in the subject and stuff. And I don't like going out with people who are so pushy and like try to get you to believe something.
Right.
That's not the thing. So
Yeah.
and there's people out there that you can just go out and find them.
Yeah, no, totally. And I think that goes back to what you're saying about finding people that sort of help you and can, be a check and balance with your own research, and just people you like and enjoy spending time in the woods with. Because ultimately, a lot of times, I mean, in some of these situations, it may be life or death. You're out there
Mm-hmm.
away from civilization. You got to trust this person. You may not, they may think Bigfoot is jumping through portals. If they can get your back at the end of the day, that's more important than what your beliefs are about Bigfoot. But there's nothing wrong with being exposed to those different kind of ideas. And like you said, there's people that might identical have the same beliefs on the subject as you, and then just be control freaks, or
Yeah.
extremely kind of really annoying in the woods, or don't know what they're doing, that kind of stuff. But and I like the point you brought about the conferences, the celebrations, right? People love to either they're pro conference or they're anti conference. A lot of it,
I was
you know,
anti-conference for a while, but I didn't really understand it back then when I was anti-conference.
right?
When I thought, oh, it's just for the money, you guys are just exploiting it,
Sure,
blah, blah,
yeah.
what are you doing? But then I realized, that it's not really about that. It's more the celebration.
Is it that
These
you went
kids
to
who
one of
go,
them, or?
No, it's not that it's just a realization, because I've been to the conferences, the conference and other festivals, Bigfoot related, and that's what probably started this whole thing. But then one day I just realized, it's really more about the celebration of the subject and the appreciation of what we do know, and the people who are out there who are actually trying and stuff. That's what we should view that as, not as some sort of scientific, presentation where you're going to get your socks blown off because you're going to learn something new. It's not going to happen.
No,
you're going to go meet and hang out with like-minded people. You guys are probably going to hook up afterwards, go hang out in the forest, go do some night expeditions or something like that. That's what those are for.
Totally. I agree. I mean, I was just recently at CryptidCon, and there's all sorts of other cryptids. Bigfoot's obviously the main star, I mean, most famous cryptid in the world, but lots of other stuff, and it's just fun. I mean, you get to meet people that you've talked to online. I met so many people that I had on this show, or people that I just know from online, and meeting of the minds, networking. You're setting up stuff for, hey, let's do this. Maybe when I'm in your neck of the woods, let's do some filming. Let's do some squatching, do whatever the case may be. So I agree. It's definitely a celebration. I like the way you put that, celebration of the subject. We're into the same things. We're a subspecies of the larger species, obviously. So there's not a lot in the grand scheme of things that are into this, but really like the way you put that, celebration of the topic. Now, I do got to read this from Mothman. This was in reference to the aggressive Southern encounters question. He says, aggressive versus calm Bigfoot. Calm northern Bigfoot eats marijuana, while Florida mean Bigfoot eats meth.
Well, it does make you. Yeah, it does make you wonder if Bigfoot does eat those magic mushrooms, though, because they're plentiful out here. And it has been proven to create brain, positive growth in the brain as far as like neural pathways and a lot of benefits. So it's like makes you wonder.
Well, that's like so many of the stories we heard from Northern California, from not only Bobo, but some of the Bluff Creek guys, was Bluff Creek Project guys, about the Bigfoots raiding the marijuana grows out there, kicking the people out. Maybe Bigfoot was using all that stuff afterwards. Who knows? I mean, obviously you had that Hulu documentary too, which people off, but I liked it. I thought that I love true crime, so I personally really enjoyed the way that went. I'm not sure if you saw that, but very cool. Good comment, Mothman. Mothman's always got some good stuff going on. But so a question I had that was kind of pertaining to some of the stuff we were talking about earlier is, people seem to get sort of they have a problem with you if you, I don't want to say criticize their evidence, but ask maybe tough questions, just in general. I'm not talking about you specifically, but I'm sure you've probably noticed this. Do you notice when you ask people to follow up on certain claims, that sort of stuff, that people then immediately are kind of thinking you're poking holes in their story? And, that does seem to be a problem in the Bigfoot community.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is how you approach it, how you communicate to somebody. But a lot of the times I notice is that people are emotionally attached to their evidence, or to a researcher, and they're going to defend it in a way that is not a logical way to defend it. So they're unable to really accept, outside critique or outside information. Even if you have the biggest kid gloves on, people will still have a hard time with it. And you just have to recognize that, you can only go so far, and you don't want to waste your time trying to convince somebody of something. I just put the information out there, I let it marinate, and I've had people come back and said, hey man, I'm sorry I yelled at you, and blah blah blah. And so that's what I try to do, is just like put the information out there, let it marinate, because people just get too emotionally attached to it, where you can't really have a conversation with them, and you no matter how polite you are and stuff, and those are the ones you just kind of walk away and let them have what they think is Bigfoot evidence. And like I say, if you do it in a way that's respectful, maybe that again will just marinate and plant the seed, and months down the road they'll come and see how you were trying to present it.
Yeah, I think it's just a general problem. I mean, people, I think, are so eager and willing to just rush and post stuff that they think are either claims or alleged videos, photos, tracks, whatever. They just post it immediately without, maybe walking it back a little bit and saying, well, hey, how about I ask somebody else, get a second opinion, find out. like you said, find people you trust that can back you up, that can maybe ask you some tough questions. And I think I was talking on Jay's show about this, he was talking about how Leon and some of these guys have sort of helped with, the being the experiencer side of it, right? And if you were to see a Bigfoot, you'd want somebody to grill you and to really ask some tough questions to see, the validity of your story. And I think the same sort of thing should apply to alleged evidence. People should cross-reference it with others, even if it's other Bigfooters, but maybe even outside the Bigfoot community. Ask people who aren't part of that, maybe a biologist, maybe somebody, a biologist that might be in the Bigfoot, like, hey, what's your professional opinion on this kind of thing? I know that not everyone has those connections, but it's worth a try. I mean, just post it in a, like you said, Facebook group. You could go to a local nature group or something like that.
Yeah, I always recommend people to go to non-Bigfoot groups or wherever to help vet out their evidence, because you always hear people say, oh well, I got this audio and I showed it all to my Bigfoot friends and we can't figure it out, it's got to be Bigfoot. But if you go take it to a wildlife biologist, he'll probably help clear it up really quick for you. But a lot of people don't want to do that because they just don't want, they want the evidence to be what they want it to be, and so you have that bias kind of involved, which it's really flooded the whole Bigfooting subject with it, where people really got to be watch out what they're accepting as evidence and stuff, because there's a good chance that it's not. And it's a tough thing for people coming into this because they don't have a roadmap or a way to do it. You're learning basically what you're watching, which is YouTube, and what's on YouTube. Well, it's what YouTube algorithm gives people, which is, people posting almost every day where Bigfoot is in every tree, behind every leaf, which that's not Bigfoot, but, that's what people think coming into the subject is Bigfoot, and the people who are investigating it, and that's their source. That's why that's why they're having an issue when they are being told that their evidence is not likely Bigfoot, that is this other thing, is because they have poor examples. And I see the tide changing where more discussions like with Matt, Central Florida Bigfoot, and Mike with Tactical Bigfoot, and like examples like that of people really kind of upping the game a lot and showing it too. And I think that's important because those people need examples, and like those two people are really good examples of people I think are doing it the right way going forward, good examples for people going forward to use, so they don't go on the wrong road that's going to waste a lot of their time and money. I wish that we had these resources when I came in. Unfortunately, we didn't, and so it was a long road to get to where I'm at now. And so it's really nice to see that it's coming together. We're getting there. Everybody is talking about there's this change coming where, and I don't think it's just in the Bigfoot subject in general. I think just society in general are just asking more questions. They're developing the tools to go research stuff themselves. These internet detectives, like the Don't F with Cats is a really good example of how internet detectives can help solve stuff. And that's what people are doing with this evidence now. Since the Finding Bigfoot, magic has worn off, we're here holding the reins of like, well, what's really going on and stuff. And, not that Finding Bigfoot was all fake, it's just, that's a production.
No, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
And some of the guys on the show, if you listen to them, they'll tell you, we did what we could with the limitations of that, obviously. But I like that you brought up about, these kind of people are learning, because I often get sort of depressed when I see the state of society, and I'm like, oh, with all this information at our fingertips, how are people still doing the same things that have been going on for centuries and falling into the same traps? But at the same time, you're talking about these detectives. Like I've seen some of the stuff, not like the Chris Hansen stuff, but there's other like more amateur groups that like hunt pedophiles and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I watch those too.
And they're just like, they're either kind of not private investigators, but they're just amateur researchers, or people are able to find out information about certain suspects in certain cases and bring up information. With like all these trials and stuff going on, it's incredible. And I think that scares a lot of people that might, have certain agendas and power or whatever the case may be. But you're given sort of the power of the people. And I think the internet is a great thing, but it's also a very bad thing. It's like one of those, it's like a mixed bag, of course, because there's so much good that can come of it and so much bad. And the misinformation, when talking about Bigfoot specifically, the misinformation sucks, and anyone can make any crazy claim. But hopefully we can start reaching people. I think with a lot of the folks kind of in this circle that are talking, as you mentioned, I think there hopefully will be change, and hopefully people get steered in this direction and can just kind of, hey man, Bigfoot is not all craziness, and the popularity is exploding. You see so many people getting into the subject. And I've noticed with a lot of our videos, they're getting a lot of traction, which obviously I'm thankful for, and I'm happy to see that. I saw some of the people who were praising the Olympic Bigfoot film in the chat. That was Eli's
great
editing.
job.
That was Eli's editing. I mean, we filmed it together, obviously, but Eli did an amazing job telling that story.
Yeah, he
did.
did.
Just have a bunch of footage on the floor, but that aside, my point being that hopefully people can just start kind of looking at the subject more seriously, because we get a lot of people that reach out to us that are not in the Bigfoot community. They're hikers, or they're into the outdoors, and they're just getting into the subject. So I think that's a perfect jumping off point to kind of put people, not to steer them. I want people to make up their own minds, but it kind of sucks when you hear somebody saying, well, doing all this stuff, and then, oh, have you seen How to Hunt, or whatever the case may be, and it's like, maybe there's a little bit of an issue there, but anyway, I didn't mean to go to a tirade there.
No, but you're right, because it's just us promoting better channels that are really out there doing what is necessary, like Matt with Central Florida Tactical Bigfoot, and Jeff Harding with Doug Highcheck, and all these different people doing some really good things out there. And we're definitely getting there. That we're all raising the bar in our own ways, using our own techniques, and help getting things kind of going that direction.
Yeah, and I just got to take a minute and say thank you to the chat. I mean, there's so many great people in the chat right now.
Oh yeah,
and even keep track of it. There's just, you guys are all awesome. I love when people are having their own conversations and talking about stuff. So you guys are just fantastic. But here's another question from Glenn H. He asks, what do researchers know now that researchers in the 60s and 70s didn't know? Has anything changed? Really interesting question.
Yeah. Just with talking with Thomas Steenberg, he is one of the greatest links to that era and to those people. It doesn't seem like much has changed. There's infighting, there's sensationalization, there's hoaxing, it seems like it's not much has changed with it. I think we have better tools to go out there to try and collect evidence. I don't think that we are actually putting in, Roger and Bob, when they went out to the PG film to go do that was a 3-week long trip. Yeah, and right. 3 weeks without on horseback and stuff. You don't ever hear anybody really doing a 3-week outing. For me, honestly, I'm what you call a weekend warrior, where I'll go out for a weekend and do the best I can within that weekend, or maybe a little extended past that. But nobody's doing the long, those type of outings anymore, those type of expeditions where they're just out there for weeks on end, living with the land, off the land. And it does happen every now and then, but just not nearly what it was back then, I believe, just in my observation. So maybe that's what kind of has changed, where the people aren't out there as much in the areas for the long period of time. Because, honestly, I think what it's going to take is somebody living out there for months on end, living off the land, to really be accepted by them. Because our goal should to learn about them, not to just prove that they exist, but our goal should be to learn about them. What culture, if any, they have, what family units do they have, what's their lifestyle like. And that's what I really kind of want to know. And I think that the only way we're going to learn that is by having somebody out there that's able to endure that for just months on end. And it's definitely not me, but just out there. And I think that that's what it's really going to take. And which that's what Bob and Roger did. And they got one of the best pieces of evidence for Bigfoot that we have right now.
Yeah. No, that's a really interesting, answer. There's just so much, I think, to unpack there in terms of all the factors involved. I think as much as there's a lot of people that are getting out in the woods now. I think backpacking and hiking, that sort of stuff is a lot more popular than it was. I mean, it's always been popular, but it's more accessible now to people, right? Equipment wise and that stuff. Back then, it seems like people were just hardier in general. They were more in tune with the land. People like Roger and Bob, they obviously worked with their hands, on farms and in the woods. And there's less and less people that are out there doing those jobs like logging and all that kind of stuff. So they're not as living as
and they were able to use horses too to help navigate that backcountry, so that they didn't have these loud cars and stuff, and so they're able to, just by chance was able to sneak up on one because it was next to a creek, and we don't really get those opportunities.
Yeah, and a lot, and like the land that's now around Bluff Creek and where the PGF site is the National Forest land. And I know from when Finding Bigfoot went there, they actually wanted to ride in horseback to the location of the film site, and they weren't actually allowed to because the National Forest says, well, you can't have horses that close to a water source. So there's differences like that have changed over time. There's more of that land that was just either privately owned or just uninhabited land is now part of federally or state managed forest systems. There's not very much land that's privately owned like that. Some of it up here in Maine, in my corner of the world, the largest amount that's not owned by federal or state land. It's privately owned by logging companies. But aside from that, like if you look at maps of the National Forest System out in the West Coast and like the Rocky Mountains to the West Coast, crazy. It's like almost all forest or BLM, National Forest or BLM land. So that's another side thing. But
and when you talk about the hiking too, it's like, but a lot of the hiking, you can't, in some hikes, you can't even go off trail. You have to stay on trail where you can't, go off navigate. So you can get far back there, but you're just on that one little walking path where, if Bigfoot is out there watching people, they're able to pick up the patterns and know where to be or where they're not going to be encountering people, because they know that they just stay on this one straight line that, we're supposed to stay on when we're out there hiking.
Makes absolute sense. Yeah. And it's, I think a 3-week trip to the woods was not as big of an undertaking for maybe somebody 50, 60 years ago. I don't know. I mean, perhaps, I don't know if it's now.
Life was simpler. It was simpler back then. Yeah. Maybe that's what it was. And, with the whole Roger and Bob, Bob had to pay for that whole thing. And, it's quite the story. It's,
it absolutely is.
Yeah, knowing that whole story, it just kind of adds more credibility to the film. I can't say for sure that's a Bigfoot because in order to keep my investigation into this subject as bias free as possible, I can't really ever go and say, oh yeah, I believe that's a Bigfoot, because that belief there can take me down a road that might lead me somewhere that is going to be a distraction or just be a rabbit hole that goes nowhere. So like I say, even with those wood knocks, very few things are out there doing wood knocks. It's likely a Bigfoot, but I still can't say that because I didn't see it, and I can't, make a mistake like that.
And it's great, very, a lot of humility to say that sort of thing. A lot of people would say with much more certainty, but that's again, being emotionally tied to something, right? A lot of people are emotionally tied to the Patterson-Gimlin film. So if that were to conclusively be proven to be a hoax, a lot of people would be very bummed out. We'd probably see a ton of people getting out of the Bigfoot subject. I mean, and I really agree with you about not being so sure. I just don't know. I mean, when I went to the film site this summer, we went to the film site. It changed the way I view the film. Absolutely. I had no idea how remote this area was. But right before, like the week before, was when there was that whole supposed Gimlin confession rumor swirling around. I remember that. It was just, I was thinking, man, what is the timing right before we're about to be at the film site? This is going on. But as a lot of folks have said, if they've had their own experiences, it wouldn't change their mind. But a lot of people would certainly be let down. But
I would be disappointed, but it wouldn't change my pursuit in the subject at all.
Right. No, absolutely. I don't think it should change people's pursuit if they really feel strongly about the subject or have had an experience. I don't think just because there's plenty of good Bigfoot stuff or supposedly thought of good Bigfoot stuff that's been either outed or has turned out to be a hoax. But one thing I'm always really bad at keeping, not a secret, but this is something I've always thought about doing. So nobody steal my idea before I do it, but I've thought about doing kind of a thing where we just go out in the woods with no modern technology at all, just do take a film camera, maybe some, tape recorders like they would have used with Sierra Sounds, and that's not me endorsing exactly what's in the Sierra Sounds. I've met Ron Moorhead, nice guy and everything, but you're using that technology from that time, maybe going out there, because a lot of people talk about sensing technology, right? EMF or these infrared, these kinds of things, maybe just trying it like it was done in the past. I don't know, that's an idea. So I'm hoping, if we get a spot where we're able to do that, just go in there with all old technology. But I was kind of thinking how I would make a film around it, because obviously it would be very challenging, so we'd have to do a sort of segment. But I don't know, that's just an idea I had.
That is a really good idea. People are talking about that, the whole EMF, creating a shield and try to better understand that relationship to Bigfoot. And it's an interesting discussion people are having with it. I personally don't have a lot of experience with it, or really much of an opinion on it, just because I just don't know too much the whole ins and outs. But it's an interesting conversation. It'd definitely be an interesting test to at least go out there or set up a whole, if you have one main camp, you can also have another primitive camp over here where they just use primitive technology and keep it enough distance away. There's different ways to kind of test things out, and it would be fun because that would be entertaining, and I think people would really want to see that type of content.
Yeah, I mean, we're at the end of the day, all of us in this community, we're researching, we're doing these sorts of things, we're trying new techniques, we're trying things that have been tried that maybe have had success for some folks. There's nothing wrong with kind of thinking outside the box. Dakota G
well, I think
says
that's
you
what's
could
going to
use
take
a cup and a string. No, I think you're right though. There just seems to be, because I see it a lot, people get really ticked off. They're like, oh, we've been doing call blasting for so long, it doesn't work, or what? If I see somebody hitting a tree with a piece of wood, I'm not watching anymore, or you guys are fake, you're never going to see it because you have a gun on you.
Yeah.
It's like, well, literally the Patterson-Gimlin film, I mean, if that's going to be the pinnacle, I'm pretty sure Bob Gimlin was armed at the time.
But sure was.
People I see it all the time, and I think that's part of the issue when we're talking about the bad information, where people get their information from. The sort of hubris they write these comments or they'll contact you with is, and they know for certain how to have something happen. And I'd like to see what they have or what their success rate is.
Some evidence of what they're claiming. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's a big thing, of course, is people are emboldened online, the anonymity. They don't exactly have to follow up with anybody, so there's no kind of protocol or anything when you make a big claim. And I think that's pretty recently been the community as well. Saw Steve Cole's show last night, which was really interesting. I actually didn't know about that. Cornell had told me about. We were hanging out on Dave's show, Bigfoot and More. I think it is. Yes, Bigfoot and More. And beforehand, he was telling me about that incident that had happened with that guy Alan, and I thought that was pretty interesting. So go to Steve Cole's channel if you guys want to hear about that.
Yeah, actually, I'm involved in that and indirectly, because he's a local guy for me, and I talked to him about it. I'm like, dude, I gave him some really good advice, and he took it and he went and confessed to Steve and apologized to Steve and Joe and them. And
I've seen his name in the comments before on some of my previous videos, so I recognized the name, but I wasn't sure from where. And then
he just made a mistake. It's just some people, we have really good conversations, and some people would like to be a part of them, and you might think that you need to be a Bigfooter or have all these really cool stories in order to be a part of the conversations, but you don't. You just need to be you, because that's all we're looking for. Is just be yourself, and that's all we kind of look for. Anybody and everybody's welcome to our discussions, to any discussion really, and because more the merrier. Sharing is caring. So in the future, I'm sure he'll probably be back on, because he just made a mistake, and that's fine, because I have a lot of respect for him for owning up to the mistake, because to take on that weight of like admitting you're wrong, going to these people and apologizing for this, that takes quite a human being, and really does, and that says a lot about a person, and I like that quality in a person, because that shows character. And for me, it's not about the mistake he made, but it's the character that he has about him, that he carries with himself, I feel is more important.
Yeah, I mean, how many people double down or quadruple down, even, go insane lengths when they have something questionable or that's not admissible. I don't know how else to phrase that, but there's so many people that just they cannot. The fear of being wrong is greater than actually looking for the truth or showing respect or some sort of dignity. And I think you get buried in that, and it happens to a lot of people. And you just hope some people hope they just forget about it. And I don't know. I mean, I think that's complex
I
human kind of things, human
yeah,
issues.
for me, I like to celebrate when I'm wrong. I'll tell people when I'm wrong. I've made videos about being wrong completely about bigfooting stuff and owning up to it, the accountability, because I think that's really important because I don't want to, push a narrative or push bad evidence onto other people. That's not very fair because that's what happened to me. And I
Right.
don't, and I try to think of myself with all these other people. Like I try to envision me as them, and what they would probably want to experience. And I try to take from my own experience when I came into it. And yeah, it's just one of those things.
Yeah, absolutely. Joe asks, Alex, you mean when you post videos of porcupines? Yes, there actually
10.
will.
We're up to 10.
There will be porcupines in an upcoming video of mine, which is the one I was talking about earlier with the wildlife, collection of game camera stuff that I have from my research area. So you won't be disappointed, Joe. I just they will be labeled the American porcupine, I believe, is the scientific name of the porcupine. So look out for that. But Bigfoot Society, what's going on, Jeremiah? He was on the show last week. He's also got a great platform. He talks to a lot of different people. He asks, or he says, Sasquatch Out of the Shadows is the best thing about Mondays. I appreciate that. Cheers to Alex and Brent. Cheers to you as well, man. Appreciate you. And he's just a good all around dude. One of those people, again, I got to meet him in person because we just happened to be driving through Iowa and went to like a Bigfoot barbecue in Des Moines, which is cool. But just a lot of
Yeah.
great people. Really.
Yeah, honestly, and I'm seeing some of these people for the first time, which is great because I always love, coming across, new people that have the same passion. And I'm sure if they're watching your channel, they watch all of ours, and so they're kind of more like-minded with us and what we're doing. So I'm going to definitely go through and subscribe to all these channels to, kind of follow them and learn from them and engage them and all that stuff because I think that's what it's about. It's Bigfooting's best shared. And
Yeah, definitely. There's like-minded people, and I think this is a great comment that my eye says I'm new to this, but found all these people that post grounded channels online when I needed info, only to find you all know each other. So yeah, it's cool. I mean, there's
that's
sort
an
of a
that person is a really cool example for us because I think it's a she. If not, I'm sorry. I'm pretty sure it's a she. But she contacted Joe with West Coast or Western. Gosh, Joe, your
Western New
you,
York Bigfoot
your
Investigation
YouTube
Bureau.
channel's killing me, buddy.
I know.
Killing
I
me,
like the
buddy.
abbreviation. Sorry, Joe. It's
Yeah. But because Joe is becoming a trusted source in this subject, and so people will go to him to help verify, you know, uh, evidence that they collect. And so this individual, in my eyes, actually, collected some interesting evidence and shared it with Joe to try and help vet it out. And he did his part to really kind of help vet it out. He kind of cleaned it up, and he found some examples of what it's likely could be. And he talked to her, and they kind of worked some things out too. And she did some stuff on her end to really to vet this out. She easily could have posted that on there on a YouTube channel. Hey, look, I got Bigfoot yelling at me,
yeah,
and that would have just went viral, that type of thing. But no, she did the right thing, and I want to highlight that as a really good example of a non-Bigfooter coming in, finding a good trusted source, having that person really do the due diligence on helping them out on finding a resolve to this. And because I think they did a really good job on finding a resolve to the sound that she had, and the uh, the the information they were able to collect, she was able to collect to help back up what they suspect it was just a really amazing thing that I encourage people
that's
to go
so cool.
watch on his channel because it was a really cool process uh, for that, because it shows you a really good example of how it can be done and stuff. And so there's hope for the subject going forward, that there's a lot of crazy people out there seeing a lot of crazy things and a lot of that stuff, but there's a lot of good people out there. And that are doing really good things, and the whole thing is just go collaborate with those people, go find them, they're out there, and
Sure.
just associate with them, and just kind of put blinders on to the noise. And you can put yourself out there to be like, oh, this is what we're experiencing, blah 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 or whatever. And and if the people want to come along on your journey, that's great. If not, then they're going to stay out there.
Well, very well put. Yeah, absolutely. Reach out to good folks, and don't be scared to reach out to people. There are some people that may be sort of jaded and give you an answer, whatever rudeness, but plenty of great people. So I really appreciate that point.
Yeah, I always try to give people the respect that they deserve when I'm talking to them. Especially when I'm trying to talk to them on if they think something is Bigfoot related. I try to really give them the respect on why it's not and stuff. And granted, sometimes people just fly off the handle still, no matter how nice and stuff you treat them, and that's when you just walk away. But there are good people out there, and if you are getting jaded and stuff, and just remember that there are good people out there, and it's a good community. It is dysfunctional, of course, but what community isn't? We just have to.
Family isn't, right?
Yeah. We just have to go focus on what's important to us, what our goals are, and with the people that are more in tune with our journey versus the ones that aren't.
Yeah, and like you said earlier, it's okay to step away too. You do you. I mean, if you got to get out of it for a while, do it. I mean, there's no point in if you're absolutely hating it and it's dragging on and on.
This should be fun for us. It should be a fun outlet for us. And so it should never take us down a road where it makes life worse for us. It should always make life better, or just that whole thing. And if you got to step away, that's absolutely okay, because sometimes you got to, because it's just the insanity could be too much. And I've done it multiple times. You've done it. Everybody's done it. It's absolutely okay.
Yeah, it's funny, in the past when that's happened, it's always been some story that I hear coincidentally, or a local story or something from somebody not related to the Bigfoot community. That's what ends up getting me back into reinvigorating the interest. So look to other sources, plenty of other mysteries in the world, plenty of other cool stuff to do. No reason to hang around if you're hating.
I'm more of a one cryptid kind of guy. I like the Bigfooting. The Bigfooting thing is just, for me, that's kind of really it. I'm interested in UFOs, and I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be getting into some paranormal stuff. It's not that I believe in paranormal stuff. It's just my son is into it, and so it's just something for me and my son. Yeah, he's a teenager now, so we're going to kind of go, check that out and kind of just have some fun with that. I don't know if I'll do videos. I'll probably will, just to kind of have it be a tag along and stuff. But it's just so much fun just getting out there with good people, and that's what this should be about. And you could learn about yourself in this journey within the Bigfoot subject itself, if you allow yourself to.
No doubt about it. Yeah, you and your son should do a trade-off. Oh, we'll do a paranormal expedition this time, Bigfoot one next time. Kind of.
Oh, he's down for it. He comes with me on some Bigfooting stuff. Awesome. I got a video from the summer when we went out and did some stuff. So he's definitely down for it, and braver than most, or not most, but he's braver than some of the adults that are willing to go out, or I have gone out with. Far braver. I'm like, yeah, you want to sleep in that tent by yourself up there? Oh, okay. It's just strange on how brave he is versus it's just interesting. So it's going to be a lot of fun with that. Awesome.
Back to like the cryptid stuff. I don't know, there's something about lakes and oceans that have always just been fascinating, whether it's the Jaws thing or something. But like I always tell people, they're kind of surprised that Bigfoot is not my favorite cryptid. It's actually the Lake Champlain monster. Just love the stories and the history. Whether or not it's real, I don't know. I've certainly talked to some witnesses that have had some really interesting encounters that I think it kind of parallels with a lot of the Bigfoot witnesses you meet, where you obviously cannot, I can't say 100% that they saw this creature or they saw a Bigfoot or a lake monster, but I truly believe that they saw what they saw, and it's interesting. Why is that kind of persistent? But then when it comes to the mountain lion thing, I mean, I know you guys. You guys have mountain lions out there, so it's not like a cryptid. Out here, and there's this weird conspiracy angle.
Yeah, I was just going to talk to you about that. It's like you're watching your documentary. It's like it's so interchangeable with Bigfoot. It's like I noticed that. I don't know if you intentionally did that or anything, but it's like,
Oh,
gosh,
sort of.
I could see so many parallels
Oh
to
yeah,
your documentary to that. It's like, wow, it's the Bigfoot cat right there. You know, it's
But-
such so many
yeah.
parallels. It's amazing. So well done on that too, by the way. That was really good. That was a good one.
I
I mean,
appreciate that. Yeah, that was my last big break from the Bigfoot stuff, where it was like end of 2018, and I think I finished that right before COVID started. I know because the film basically flopped then because I couldn't do any screenings or anything because it came out in March of 2020.
mm,
But those 2 years that I was working on it, the reason I did it was primarily because I heard at a lot of these events, and I talked to people, and I grew up with people that had allegedly seen mountain lions around here. And at events, I would hear more mountain lion reports than any other cryptid or even UFOs or Bigfoot or anything. It was mountain lions. People say, well, no Bigfoot, but we've seen a black panther or we've seen mountain lions and not supposed to be here. So, but you're right, those parallels throughout doing the documentary, I noticed so many parallels, and there's this
I don't know if it was
destruction.
yeah, I don't know if it was like intentional
It was
or
a
not,
little
but
intentional, yeah, but I just think the parallels are there, and that's why I think
mhm.
that topic fits really kind of within cryptozoology, but it's very mainstream too, because more people can buy the idea that, yeah, mountain lions are returning to their native grounds from out west, or maybe there's some stragglers that survived. That's when you kind of get into the theories. But I talked to Michael Mays about it when I had him on a few weeks ago, and he's into the same thing. And it's just there's so many other different like cryptids and cryptid stories that are either real animals that might still be around or are returning to their native grounds, or the possibilities are endless. But Bigfoot is definitely my favorite to research by far, because almost anywhere you go in North America and some parts of the world, you have stories like this. Orang Pendek, recently with Gareth Patterson, the Otang, whatever it is in South Africa. So there's just a lot. Bigfoot, you can go pretty much anywhere. Whereas if you're researching something like a lake monster, you're really stuck in that one geographic area. So I dig the Bigfoot stuff, but
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's such an enriching. It could be such an enriching thing in your life. Just don't let it consume it, and don't let it bring you down. Just keep it, as a hobby, and explore it and all that.
yeah, absolutely. Where is this? I was going to read this question from something to Sasquatch about. He was asking me about something to ask Shane when he has him on a show. Okay, Alex, give me a question I can ask Shane Corson. I would say ask him about his sighting. You probably were going to do that anyway, but he took us out to his location where he saw this thing, where they had these kind of few nights of strange experiences in the Mount Hood area. We stayed in the same exact campsite, which was really cool. To be with somebody that this is an area where they had something happen. It's just a cool experience. So I'd say go ahead and ask that question.
Yeah, I really like Shane. I really wish I could have got out there and had the time to go explore with him and stuff, because he's such a good investigator. I mean, we're very fortunate to have him in the Bigfoot subject, and to kind of go out there and keep a good level head and do the due diligence that we're supposed to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, there's some great people, and I've said that since I met those guys and gals. There's so many good people in the OP and the Olympic project. Just such not like, even if it wasn't Bigfoot, you could just go out there and have fun with them in the woods. Just have a good
That's what I'm
time.
talking about.
And that's what
With
it's
the people
about.
going out. Yeah, it's
Absolutely.
finding the good people to go out with, and if you don't agree about everything, that's fine. You're hanging out with good people, and that's what it's all about.
Absolutely. Oh, this is an interesting comment. If you want to see a Sasquatch head, go to my Facebook page, David LaHurix, in my pics, Groveton, New Hampshire. That's some local stuff for me. Interesting. I will have to look at that. I'll let you know, Brent, what turns up with that. But I always love getting the local stuff in my comments. I don't know how people find me like that, but that is awesome.
Yeah, and if anybody's local has any information or anything like that, I'm up in Washington, North Cascade, Snohomish County, Skagit County, King County, anything in those areas, uh, send it my way. I love getting, information, reports, old sightings, whatever, because
Yeah,
it
totally.
helps build a little, database of sorts to, better understand where in the Cascades they could be really roaming around and stuff.
Yeah, for
I mean,
sure.
there's literally so many places that people don't go for decades. It's quite the place.
Oh, totally. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I have your YouTube channel linked down below. So that's the tall ones. Is that a good place for people to contact you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's and there's a Facebook page. I think that I think has a email attached to it or something, because
Right.
I don't know if they can contact me on Facebook or on YouTube unless they do like a comment down there or
Yeah,
something. But
yeah, something like that.
but
Jeremiah says, Kip Morrill for Bigfooter of the Year 2021.
was it
Yeah,
8 years
Kip
in
is
a
awesome.
row?
Kip's awesome. He's a real nice guy.
Yeah, he's
We met
funny.
him up
He's
there at
funny.
Bluff Creek. Yeah, he's hilarious, but some cool stories. Very level-headed too. Absolutely.
Well, there's a lot of good people down there at the Bluff Creek area, the Bluff Creek project, the stuff that they've done with the Pine Marten,
Oh, for
and
sure. Yeah.
the trail cam project that they've had been going for years, and the work that they've done into restoring the Patterson Gimlin site, finding it.
Oh,
You know,
indispensable.
yeah, the Robert Lederman's new book that
Oh,
he just
yeah.
came out about
Yep.
that.
I was just
Uh,
going to mention that, Tate, on last week, he's part of the Bluff Creek project, and he was talking about the book, and I can't wait to get my hands on one. And Robert is such a nice guy. And I actually met Stephen back in the day when I first got into this subject, when I visited Willow Creek for the first time. And then I got to meet Rowdy and Kip and all those guys this summer when we were up at the film site, and they're really nice. And obviously Tate too. And on that note, Tate asked a question, Alex, what question would you ask me if you had the chance to bring the existence of the PDG to the world? Would you do that, Tate? Probably not. A little inside joke.
I've been watching some of the Tate stuff, his like the documentaries and stuff that he's done and stuff. He does a really good job with his filming and stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah, Tate's awesome. Another one of these guys where he's down in Florida, so we're definitely going to be linking up with him, as well as, we're talking about Matt, Central Florida Bigfoot, a bunch of other folks down there in the Florida area, because I want to find me some skunk ape, or at least look for them. And I love that
Man,
environment. It's so
I
different
don't.
than, no,
Oh
you're not a fan
man,
of the swamps.
no man. You know, we're here in the west in Western Washington. Like, worst we got here is like black widows or something. You know,
Oh
down
boy.
there, man, everything is going to eat you. Like, man, that would be such a stressful place to investigate, just because you just never know. One spider bite, man, will lay you out. So I have a lot of respect for the people who investigate down in Florida, because, man, that is some crazy, crazy forest area down there, swamp area,
It really
whatever you
is.
want to call it. Yeah,
Oh yeah, the
but
palmettos and the pine trees down there. I love it. I love those environments. I mean, uh, I would not want to live in a place like that because I need mountains. So,
yeah,
some
same
place like
here.
Washington, out here in New Hampshire, I love seeing the hills, but I love being in those environments. I also don't like that crazy humidity they have during the summer months, but
Mm.
like the winter in Florida, perfect time. I was down there last winter, but we're definitely going to be filming some stuff there at some point. And there's just so many cool environments I want to get into. Also, it's dry season, so there's not as much, moisture as in some of the other parts where the water level gets higher. It depends where you go.
Yeah, Matt's doing some actually really cool stuff down there with the
Yeah,
kayak.
it is.
You know, going out there exploring on the kayak, and you know, looks like he's got some really good stuff going on. Same with Tactical Bigfoot, and
Yeah, for
it's,
sure.
it's those are good contact people down there.
Yeah, Jay says, do they have porcupines in Florida? I believe they do. We'll keep our eyes out for them. But yeah, no, it's
I
like I
know
said,
they're
it's
in
a cool
Vermont.
environment. Yeah, but we got them here in New Hampshire. We're neighbors, so hey, ton of them. I get them all the time. Actually, really funny porcupine related story, since we're on that topic, was when I was with Eli. He was out here visiting after we were filming some stuff on the Lake Champlain monsters with Carrick, and we went camping in my main research area where I had some weird stuff happen where we got these wood knocks and everything. And we were camping. This was a year after the wood knocking incident kind of had happened, and we're camping and we start smelling this horrific smell. And I'm like, no way, man. What is that smell? Of course, we're like, this is too good to be true. Like, this is just a disgusting smell. And Eli's like, oh, it just smells like the subway in LA. I'm like, that's not good. But the next morning, we actually found a dead porcupine right near where the car pull-in is, and that's just far enough away when you walk down to this area where there's a clearing where we do the fires. Every once in a while, you get a whiff, but once we got to my car, just the whole area stunk to high heaven, and I found that what was left of the porcupine, not much, just the quills and a little bit of the body, but whew, that smelled really bad.
Yeah, I've encountered that odor once. I was on a search for a missing person, and I went and did this river crossing, and I just got to the other side, and as soon as I got there, I smelled something really bad. It was like just smelled like a dumpster, like it was just trash. It just smelled so bad. I never found the source of it, but it was a really interesting thing. I know stinkhorn mushrooms patches will create a bad odor as well, but this was really kind of weird because it was like floating in the air. It wasn't overpowering. It was just kind of floating in the air. It's really hard to describe, but yeah, it was the only time I've encountered that really awful smell.
Yeah, I've only ever had that where I was able to figure out what it was, and then like a really bad, dirty feet kind of smell. But I don't know. There's a lot of stuff that gets kind of moisture, rotting wood. It can smell really strange combined with the swamps. Maybe
I could smell really bad after a day out in the woods,
Yeah.
man. I stink. I'd be like, man, what's that smell? And then I realized, oh, that's me.
Oh yeah, that was like us at Bluff Creek. We were driving up from Louse Camp to the film site. It was a few miles drive on these crazy roads that you drop off into a mountain, if you're not careful. And I think it was me and Eli were on each side. We had been in Bluff Creek for a few days, and Jonathan of Western Bigfoot Exploration is another great guy. He was in there with us in the middle, and we're just sitting there. The weather in the mountains there is crazy. It goes from 100 degrees in the day, possibly, in like the 80 to 100 range, to 50 at night. So it was all this fluctuation. He's just like, man, you guys definitely smell like you've been out here. We're like, oh yeah. Well, thanks for letting us know, because you have no idea, when you're out there,
Yeah.
you're used to your own odor. So that is funny. But hey, Peggy, thanks for that super chat. Peggy says this is the best time of year here in Florida. Yeah, definitely. And I can't wait to get back down there. It's always super interesting.
Yeah, you can mel us up some heat here because it's so cold here now. I mean, geez, it's wintertime now, really.
I know we have tons of snow up in the mountains already. As Brian, with his video, he put out the video hiking up there in the White Mountains with all that snow. We had some, but it just melted. But it's pretty cold every day. Today was like the warmest. It was like mid 50s, which was nice. Usually it's in the 30s, so not great. But
yeah, anyway, it's interesting here. Interesting here in the Cascades. I just want to say this real quick. Is that we have the rain shadowing effect. So here on the west side of the Cascade, it's like a rainforest, but on the east side of the Cascades, it's like a desert. So it's funny, like the weather over there on the east side of the Cascades is like in the 70s, while it's in the 40s here, while it's sunshine there, while we're getting like dumped on here. It's incredible what the weather can do and how the rain shadowing effect with the mountains can affect the whole region.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, yeah, we saw the craziest weather difference I ever saw was also in Bluff Creek. It's very hot and it can get it's very dry. It's like a dry heat kind of thing, but it gets cold at night in the mountains. And we were driving from basically Bluff Creek to Crescent City, which is right near the Redwood Coast, and Eureka in that area. And when you drive out, you see, it's bright sunshine. You see this cloud of fog, and you go through it, and it's completely different weather, 20-30 degree difference from just 10 minutes away. Unbelievable what weather can do. And you have all these different biomes, and Washington State with all those rainforests up and down the Pacific Northwest. So it's an amazing area, and I have no doubt that it's the perfect kind of environment. Well, not that I can say for sure, have no doubts, but it's a perfect kind of area you'd imagine something like a Sasquatch would be able to.
Great environment, yeah. They got food year round, water is abundant, they got coverage, they got don't have to worry about snow year round in certain areas, and it's a great place for them. And so I think if Bigfoot's anywhere, it's here, and I feel very fortunate to have the opportunity to go out and explore the Cascade Range of where they might be. And again, I like to bring people along for the ride, to kind of help share that experience. And that's what a lot of my videos are, just kind of tag along. Hey, this is where I'm going, or this is who I'm seeing, and this is what they're showing us, or whatever. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah, absolutely. On that note, Bluff Creek, Tate says he's going camping in Bluff Creek. That's right, dude. Enjoy. Joe says,
oh, nice.
Leave the costume at home when you do. Right on. Yeah. Awesome. Should be a good time. Always a good time when in the Bluff Creek area. But yeah, man, really appreciate you coming on. Love the discussion. And last kind of thing, if you want to just let people know, is your YouTube channel kind of best place to find you, find out what you're doing, that sort of stuff? Just let people know where they can tune in.
Yeah. The YouTube channel for me works great. But also check out like Something to Squatch About, No Such Thing podcast, Bigfoot and More, Joe's channel, Western Yeah, Joe's channel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Western
Yeah.
New York Bigfoot Investigation.
Yeah, that one right there. Check those people out more. So, and go give them a lot of love. Subscribe to them, give them some likes, and check out their content as well. It's really, really good. That I think a lot of people would like.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. A lot of great people in this community, and as we talked about, I feel a common theme throughout the conversation. Find those people that you like, that are willing to maybe give you some challenges sometimes. Not necessarily wholeheartedly agree with you, but just a good vibe too. And you don't have to agree with them. Just a good vibe out in the woods. Somebody that you could trust your life with, perhaps, if you're out there in a dangerous situation. So, absolutely.
And have fun while you're out there. Just have fun.
Absolutely. Thank you, New Hampshire Sasquatch.
Oh, thank you.
Always enjoy my Monday nights because of the show. Really appreciate it. And Sandra Piper says, good night, everyone, and God bless. Yeah, thanks again, everybody. Awesome. Such great people in the chat. I mean, Joe, Tate, Brian, and Chewy. We've got Jay Burch. Just so many great people. And actually, on that note, Jay is going to be our guest this upcoming Monday night. So next week, we'll also be talking to Jay about Washington State, his encounter. Really looking forward to that. And as I mentioned at the beginning of it, go for it.
Oh, I was going to say, and before that, the people in the chat and everybody watching should go to Jay's channel and check out his video of his encounter location, because he takes us along where he had all these different Bigfoot experiences right on location. So highly recommend you guys go check that out before watching the show with Jay, so you get a better understanding of the stuff that he talks about, because he takes us right where stuff happens. And you see it right there. So it's on his channel.
Also, if you like barbecue, I mean, I'm a barbecue fiend.
Yeah.
So he's got, I cannot wait.
Oh, man, it was amazing food, dude.
Eat some of his food, yeah.
It was amazing food. Hopefully you're able to get down here like next year or something, because that would be great. Because he's an amazing host, an amazing area with an amazing encounter that I fully believe. So it's awesome.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, dude, hope to link up. Obviously, I'll let you know whenever we're heading out there. We are sort of planning. It's not really a secret. I've been talking about on other shows, and we are planning to do hopefully some kind of a Ape Canyon sort of thing. And Jay, obviously, he's in that area, and
he's right there.
So there's a lot in that area, and between the Olympic Project guys and a lot of the other folks that are involved with the Ape Canyon stuff, and Mark Marcel and some of those dudes. So I would love to have you down there and get out there and hit the woods with everybody. So until then, we'll keep on doing what we do. And thanks everybody. Harry Man, that's Nikki says, Alex would love to
Nikki too
talk about hoaxes with me. Yeah, I'd love to. I vividly remember the 2008 hoax, the Georgia one. I was in high school. I was extremely invested in that one. I was like, oh my God, Bigfoot might be real. And then I kind of learned about Biscardi after that and everything. But I would love to do that, Nikki.
Yeah, she has a really good channel.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Definitely some great topics. And it's, a lot of people just focus on Bigfoot and the stories and everything, but it's different when you focus on specifically the hoaxes and all the things that are really wrong with some of
the shenanigans that has gone on, does go on. It's just, yeah.
I'd love to give some of my theories on Biscardi and his possible mafia connections.
That should be a good one.
I'm into The Sopranos, and I like true crime, so I've always thought there's some interesting stuff. But anyway, thanks, Jeremiah. Says see you next week. And there's something on the hill. Love it. Awesome. Thanks again, Brent. Really appreciate it, guys. Go check out Brent. He's one of the good ones for sure. He's the tall ones, but the good ones as well. And there's a lot of great people in the community. And as I mentioned, next week's show with Jay is going to be awesome. Talking about his encounter, and we're going to have to talk barbecue too, for sure. But I will have this video coming out this week, which is, like I said, sort of a solo camping adventure. Jay, if you check it out, and don't critique me too much on my skillet steak cooking skills. I'm still getting into it. So we're trying our best. But thanks again, everybody in the chat. Hope everyone has a great rest of your week. And looking forward to talking to you guys next week on next Monday's show. And take it easy, everybody.
Bye, Mom. Love you.